You would not believe how fervently people hate this theory. They don't play around, they legitimately get heated. But look guys, I'm sitting here, I'm biding my time, I'm waiting for Oda to troll the entire fan base and just see the reaction. When Zoro finally unlocks his Sharingan, there's gonna be some people acting up. But those who watch this video are gonna know the truth. This has always been a great theory, so buckle up. Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, you guys already know that the Zoro Sharingan theories was a pretty popular thing like 10 years ago. It's probably still popular to this day, but it's just been shunned out of existence. Honestly, I don't get it. Some of y'all have bad opinions, like objectively bad opinions. I can already hear the cries from the crowd. One Piece isn't Naruto. Okay, fair enough. That's true. One Piece is also not the thousands, the literal thousands of other shows that it takes inspiration from. Oda sits down at his desk, thinks about how he can incorporate Dragon Ball into the story of One Piece, nodding to himself like, yeah, this is gonna be so great. Rubs his hands together, we cooking. An editor slowly and nervously scoots up to his desk, is like, yo, this thing that Naruto's doing with their eyes is pretty cool, maybe we should use that. The kids love it. And so Oda looks up in indignation. You really think so low of me? Bruh, Naruto is absolute trash. Gonna need some new editors with taste. So go to your corner while I finish up this Garp and Kobe scene, which is clearly inspired by All Might and Deku from My Hero Academia. Look guys, maybe Oda does actually think that Naruto is trash. I don't think that's the case, but like, hypothetically, okay? We can't use anything related to Naruto, even though it's been over for like 10 years. I certainly didn't think that Naruto was trash. You guys remember the Hokage Mount Rushmore? Well, Naruto itself is on my manga Mount Rushmore. Just honestly. And no, I haven't watched or read Boruto, nor do I plan to. Sorry. But I was there and equally hyped as everybody else about the cool eye transformations. It doesn't matter why it works, it just works. Look guys, One Piece YouTube in 2016 was kind of a wild time to be alive. The thumbnail game, not that great. But the meta at the time was just like, take a normal panel of One Piece and just give them funky eyes. Literally. Make the eyes glow. Boom, wow, got him. 1 million views. Every time. Sharingan eyes was essentially the equivalent of Mr. Beast titles today. That's just reality, and that tells you everything that you need to know. But maybe you're an elite connoisseur of art and don't like derivative things. You know, everything has to be like really creative from the author's own pure imagination. No inspirations. You're reading the wrong manga. That's honestly Oda's superpower, let's be real. Oda cops himself a copy of Game of Thrones, gets into it, it's like, yo, this is fire. The Red Wedding went hard. Maybe we can utilize this in Whole Cake Island. Is the Tea Party the actual Red Wedding from Game of Thrones? No, but is it very obvious that Oda took inspiration? Yes. And I suppose that's kind of the art of it. Look at other popular media of the past, of the present, what were they doing, and see if you can recreate the effect. But of course, adding your own twist to it so that it feels different. Even though it's not. Look at Dragon Ball as an example. After they did Kaioken, Toriyama's like, hey, I want to have my Saiyans have a power-up, not sure how to do it. Brainstorms it's like, yo, let's just change the color of the hair and make it stand up. Somebody asks him how that makes sense in any universe, and he's like, pretty cool though, right? Meanwhile, 25 years later, Oda is designing Gear 5th, and he's like, yo, what if we take Luffy, but we change the color of his hair and make it stand up? Somebody asked him, but like, isn't that like Dragon Ball? How are we doing anything different? Why does that even make sense? And Oda's like, hold up, listen to me. What if we justified it using freedom? Also, let's make the power of imagination an actual power in the world of One Piece. Maybe that's just your freaking eternal flame. Luffy is a sun, right? So suddenly we have white hair and free hair, you know? Free hair just wants to stand up, dude. Monumental flames. Oda done did it again. So I hope that I've made myself clear. I design eye changes, that sort of stuff is just cool. It's just cool, people like it. You don't need any other reason to include it in your story, and Oda has already taken inspiration from it. Look at Hawkeye's Mihawk, right? He has unique eyes, it's totally unexplained. It may not have an explanation, but Oda knows. Mihawk's existence and presence just goes a little bit harder because of it. When Oda designed Emu, right? Emu has the very same strange eyes. Oda is keeping this in mind. He knows this. This is even in play within the last couple of years. Oda designed the Seraphim's eyes to be unique. They have little star pupils. Is it necessary? Absolutely not. Is it cool? Oda probably thinks so. But so here's the thing. Oda very rarely does anything without any justification whatsoever. Even if the concept boils down to, I think that this is cool, and I want to include this in my story because I've been inspired by something else or whatever, right? There's usually an in-story reason for it. Like Luffy, when Gear 2nd, steam is coming off his body, it's a cool visual. But Oda makes sure to add in that layer of like Luffy is made out of rubber and he's pumping his blood. So the reality of Gear 2nd is that Luffy's blood is probably literally burning, and that steam cloud is also probably his blood coming through his skin? Oh geez. Honestly, in live action, realistically, that's horrific. But Oda did include a justification. So in my opinion, it is actually logical to assume that there is also a justification for Mihawk and Imu and the Seraphim's eyes. Oda just needs a good time to reveal it. Believe it or not, I have never actually made a Zoro Sharingan theory video over the course of my entire channel. In fact, I made a joke about this before. But it's time for Joy Boy Theories to step into the arena. Sit back, grab yourself some popcorn, don't forget to like and subscribe, you guys already know. Let's begin. So the premise to this theory, if you are not aware, which I understand most everybody is aware, but the premise is that Zoro has one closed eye, and at some point it will open. Although there is a visible scar, the eye is in fact not damaged, or at least not permanently damaged. And when he opens it, that eye will look different and Zoro will have some kind of new power. Is Zoro actually going to reveal the Sharingan, the technique from Naruto? Absolutely not. I've seen some people mention this as a criticism before, which is just pretty blatantly obtuse. You've missed the assignment. It will be called something else. It will be uniquely explained in the world of One Piece based on the world building and the powers, etc. But an interesting way to approach the theory and approach the idea itself is by looking at Naruto. For instance, have you ever wondered how and why Kishimoto, the author of Naruto, was inspired to design these eyes in the first place? If you were curious, it's derivative of Shinto and Buddhist belief native to Japan. Maybe it'd be easier to explain if we move away from the Sharingan and instead focus on the Rinnegan, another very important eye power in the Naruto universe. The Rinnegan literally translates as the Samsara eye, and Samsara is essentially the cycle of life, or the cycle of life and death within Hindu and Buddhist teachings. I'm going to keep this to Buddhism for simplicity's sake, and I'm going to approach this very simply in general just because you don't need to know the whole religion to understand the concept. Buddhists essentially believe in reincarnation. They also believe in karma. Based on your deeds in this life, you are reborn into another, and there's various places that your soul could be reborn. These places are often referred to as paths, and more specifically, paths of pain. Because Buddhists believe that life, the cycle of samsara, reincarnation, rebirth, is all suffering. Life is suffering. This is the ultimate truth. Eventually, however many lives it takes, all souls will come to understand this. So you want to escape this cycle of samsara. You want to escape the paths in order to reach nirvana. That is enlightenment. So once again, the Rinnegan literally translates as the samsara eye. And the powers of the character Nagato, or Pain, are derived from this influence. Pain reanimates or reincarnates and controls corpses. He then named each of these corpses after the 6 paths: Naraka, Preta, Animal, Human, Ashura, and Deva. In this way, you can see how Nagato's powers metaphorically make him the master of the 6 paths, a master of life. Also, the Rinnegan of the power itself is referred to as like a godlike power. He walks all 6. With the natural understanding of pain and suffering which comes from this, he then is metaphorically enlightened.
There is no such thing as a fucking hockey man.
Nagato is basically a Buddha, or at the very least believes that to be true and has powers that are tangentially related, remaining in the physical world as a bodhisattva. Basically, this makes him a teacher trying to help other people enlighten, and he accomplishes this by making people realize that life is suffering or pain. But the final goal for those that follow Buddhism is obviously to enlighten, reach nirvana. And another way of phrasing this is that they desire to possess the Eye of Buddha. This is an incredibly famous symbol, and are meant to convey the all-seeing nature of the Buddha himself, his ability to see beyond the physical realm and see truth itself, along with various other things. I believe that you can also think of this as a third eye. But the basic concept is that you have physical eyes, and then you have an inner eye. The physical eye sees the material reality, while the inner eye sees beyond. And this is effectively what the specially designed eyes in Naruto achieve in very specific manga ways. There's some bloodline elements to this that I definitely want to gloss over, but essentially in order to acquire Sharingan, you need to have experienced pain or suffering, an intense moment. Incidentally, the use of these eyes eventually leads the user to lose their vision of the physical world. So I'm hopeful at this point in time that even if you haven't seen Naruto, you can understand that the eye powers in it is very heavily influenced by Buddhism? Probably. Buddhism is pretty influential and can be used as a source of inspiration. Buddhism, which also happens to be a very prevalent religious belief in Japan. And coincidentally, another famous fellow is also from Japan, right? The author of One Piece, Eiichiro Oda. And we have a Buddhist character in the story of One Piece, and that character is Zoro. Zoro, who has literally stated on multiple occasions that he walks the paths of pain. In fact, his strongest abilities all relate to individual paths. I've done several videos on this, so I'll just go ahead and link them in the description. But long story short, my speculation is that as Zoro masters each of these paths of pain, embraces and understands them, he unlocks new powers. Ashura being one of these, but there are several others. Long story short is that Zoro's on a quest to become the master of the 6 paths, just the same as Nagato. So maybe we shouldn't speculate that he will unlock the Sharingan. Rather, he will unlock the Rinnegan, inspired by the Eye of Buddha. But I suppose that it's time that we take this to the next level, right? You don't actually go from having regular eyes to the Eye of Buddha. It doesn't work that way. As far as I can gather, there are 5 inner eyes. And I believe that you acquire them like levels, one before the other, with the Eye of Buddha being the final level. This is also something shared with the lore of Naruto, because the Rinnegan is something that is usually achieved after somebody already has the Sharingan. It's considered a greater power. So you have the eyes of ordinary people, or the physical eye. You have the heavenly eye, the wisdom eye, the dharma eye, and then finally the Buddha eye. As you guys will know, Zoro follows Bushido. Bushido, which is the art of the sword of the samurai, but also has religious connotations. It's related to the practice of Buddhism. Further mastery of the sword was seen as a spiritual accomplishment. But it should be noted that the spiritual accomplishment is not limited to the practice of the sword. It's simply a particular manifestation. Likewise, Mihawk may not be Buddhist in the same way that Zoro is, but he is a spiritual character, and this is, I think, highlighted by the fact that we see that Dracula Mihawk bears a cross. So I believe that he has obtained similar abilities as Zoro's already demonstrated through the story, and possibly others that he hasn't yet. This takes us to the second eye, or the heavenly eye. It's also called the divine eye. The simplest way to explain this is an eye that just simply sees better, as if your eye possesses the capabilities of a telescope or a microscope. Essentially, guys, the heavenly eye is a hawkeye. While in One Piece this might be explained as a unique application of observation haki, we can still see in chapter 561, as Mihawk fights Luffy, the actual power of his eyes. Oda even focuses in on Mihawk's hawk eyes as he observes Luffy running around with extreme clarity, even from great distances. It is my opinion that when Oda designed Mihawk and his hawk eyes, he had heavenly eyes in mind. But this leads us to the next set of eyes, or the wisdom eyes. This is a pretty tough concept to explain, but the idea is that everything is emptiness. What our physical and heavenly eyes perceive isn't really there. This is actually related to current scientific ideas such as everything being energy. You may see yourself as an impermanent physical being, but instead you are permanent emptiness or energy. It should be reminded that the great goal of all this is to escape samsara, or escape the cycle of life and suffering. This suffering only exists with the attachment to the impermanent physical world. Thus, an understanding of emptiness is seen as wisdom. To me, I would relate this to Emu, who also possesses a permanent version of the same type of eyes. The great cleansing, erasing islands and light. Maybe Emu has an understanding of emptiness, or wisdom eyes. But it should be noted that these eyes are a double-edged sword. Many Buddhists achieve this, but Buddha cautions against not progressing past it, because wisdom eyes cannot save other beings, because wisdom eyes do not perceive other beings. So perhaps Emu is an extreme example of this. The power to force others to understand and experience emptiness, manifested as destruction. But I think that as I say this, a lot of people are going to have issues with this, seeing Emu as potentially a religious character. Maybe something is off here. But I think that as Luffy and as Nika is deified in the story, Emu is kind of a foil, a dark prophet. But I do want to note that in Buddhism there are 8 distinct sufferings. The goal is to escape these. The 8 sufferings are birth, old age, sickness, death, loss of loved ones in pleasant conditions, associations with unpleasant persons and conditions, failure to obtain what one wants, and impermanence. Emu may be a false god who has achieved these things in the wrong way, but as Emu is now, they have escaped all 8 of these sufferings while remaining in the physical world. Emu is immortal. If you believe that reincarnation has its place in the world of One Piece, Emu does not get reborn. Emu also does not grow old, get sick, or die. Emu apparently has no loved ones, so they cannot lose them. Emu does not associate with people that they do not want to. Imu attains what they want and are permanent. Antithetically, Imu can be seen as a living being that has escaped samsara. This would basically make Imu the same as Pain from Naruto, an evil bodhisattva, using suffering, destruction, and death as a way to teach truth. And that seems to be the main difference between the wisdom eyes and the next level of eyes, the Dharma eyes. Those that possess the Dharma eye are bodhisattvas. They remain in the physical world in order to help others enlighten, but I assume in the right way, not just fixated on the emptiness, but with knowledge that what happens in the physical world matters. Maybe not Luffy, but Nika could potentially be a being possessing the Dharma eyes. Certainly many have noticed that when Luffy awakened his devil fruit, his eyes did in fact change. Not the same as Mihawk and Imu, but still. Definitely this is what Oda intended for the role of Nika and Luffy to be in the story, whether he intends it or not. Possessing the Dharma eye is all about compassion and love, without regard to oneself. And it just makes you think about the most recent chapter with Sanji using the power of love in order to break the rules of physics. With respect to Buddhism and the five eyes, this accomplishment actually makes sense. And of course, the last eye is the Buddha eye. Another difficult one to explain, but the Buddha eye is everything. It perceives everything. It is everything. Commonly presented in a way I think that more people understand, time and space are not obstacles for those that possess the Buddha eye. The singular manga superpower which would be associated with it is the ability to see the past, present, and future with no bounds. And this takes us back to Mihawk. When Oda initially designed Mihawk, he didn't have hawk eyes. He was intended to be Mihawk the Clairvoyant. And perhaps this hints at the original direction that Oda intended to go with the character. Most likely the first character that Oda intended on having future sight haki. I'm sure that all of this is really interesting, but most of you will have stumbled upon a problem potentially with this theory, right? This is supposed to be about Zoro opening his eye, it looking different, having a particular power, and that's all well and good, but like the double rings of Mihawk's and Imu's eyes are seen elsewhere, in ways that do not fit the spiritual enlightenment idea of this theory. Like Zoe the creature or Zunisha possessing these eyes is really interesting because Momo got flashes of their experiences from the past, and that could be related in some way, but like Hakuba, Cavendish's altar, having these eyes, you see them commonly throughout the story in ways that just don't make sense. So what is the actual secret of hawk eyes? I believe them to be eyes of pain and suffering, or maybe eyes of extreme emotion or passion, potentially desire. Now go through the entire story, every possible example of a character demonstrating the double-ringed eyes, even characters who only showed them for a moment. What is the commonality? Shock and pain, sometimes rage. And in my opinion, this is what makes Mihawk and Imu's eyes unique. They've captured a moment, maybe an emotion, and made it permanent through understanding and embracing pain in all forms or maybe an individual form. These characters have been granted a superior sense, the ability to see the world with greater clarity. I think it should be obvious by now, but really the powers in the world of One Piece have already been explained to us. What is the power of the Hawk Eye? Well, I think it's simply observation haki. Whether you're following Mihawk in his battle versus Luffy in Marineford, or you see Mihawk as the clairvoyant as Oda originally intended, these would be clearly derivative of what is now observation haki. So this is more accurately my theory. The eyes are a conduit allowing the expression of the strongest form of observation haki that we will ever see in the story. Look guys, calmness is very important to the expression of observation haki. And I think we can gather that Imu and Mihawk are two of the calmest individuals in the entire series. When we eventually see Mihawk fight all out at 100%, I think that we'll discover that he has the strongest observation haki. And the unique appearance of his eyes is going to be a technique to help attain this level. It's something like the perfect balance of passion and of calm. Passion is will, or haki, a word to describe desire. The eyes effectively solve the paradox of observation haki, because calmness can often be associated with apathy, the lack of caring, or even a contentment. But characters like Imu and like Mihawk care more than anybody, yet do so with this zen ambiance of calm. But we've touched on this concept of like passion and desire. This was also how Vegapunk described devil fruits. Vegapunk's artificial devil fruit does not possess the normal swirl pattern, instead a double-ringed eye. Maybe the double ring is supposed to be a precursor or an incomplete form of natural desire. When Big Mom loses her mind, essentially loses her consciousness, when she desires something very strongly and is totally out of her mind, Her eyes swirled. She effectively became a being of pure desire. And interesting here, later on when she has gathered some amount of her own wits, the swirl is lost, replaced by the double ring. I just think that there may be something here. Pure desire is a spiral, but controlled desire is a ring. Like I said, guys, I don't really know. Let me know if you think that I'm cooking in the comment section. But let's just go ahead and switch gears and end this thing. Luffy's observation haki has begun to far surpass that of Zoro's. But I believe that if Zoro is ever going to fight and defeat Mihawk or ever be on Mihawk's level, his observation haki has to grow just as much and beyond what Luffy's is now. So Zoro essentially needs a mirror world future sight haki training arc, and that could be really boring and repetitive since we already got that for Luffy. So in my opinion, this is the reason why Oda gave Zoro one closed eye, so that he will have effectively been training his observation haki the entire post-time skip. And when that power-up is finally delivered, the entire community will be hyped by it. One of the reasons why the Eye of Buddha is a unique symbol is that both eyes are partially closed. And what this is meant to represent is the Buddha being able to see with both of his eyes simultaneously, both the inner world and the outer world. Zoro obviously isn't exactly the same, but there's definitely obvious parallels, there's similarities here with one open eye and one closed eye. Honestly, even if Zoro's eye is just simply injured, I would still argue that this is inspired by the eyes of Buddha. Zoro is a very fitting character to have one closed eye. One is meant to observe the physical world while the other is observing them more spiritual aspects. Almost permanent meditation. But my belief is that Zoro is not allowed to open this eye until he has acquired the Hawkeye, and he will somehow know when this has occurred. While many believe that Mihawk may have given Zoro this scar, it's possible that Zoro gave it to himself because he opened it before it was ready. So when the time comes that Zoro needs advanced observation in the story, that is when we'll see the eye open. But yeah, guys, like I said at the very beginning of this, I know that this theory is absolutely hated. Most who hate it probably haven't even reached the end of the video. Actually, if you did make it to the end of the video, go ahead and comment, holy hell, JB did it again. Even if you don't actually agree, I'd just like to see who actually watched it. But I really hope that I was able to present this in a way that even if you were a skeptic at the start, you can at least you can see some possibility. I've sat on this idea for literal years, bringing it up only to roast Nuxtaku. But this has been my honest opinion from the very start. Zoro, in some way, justified however Oda wants to do it, opening his eye is insanely cool. It would work and the majority of fans would love it. For that reason alone, it is worthy of speculating. But just to tie up some loose ends here, guys, not everyone who's ever shown these eyes has insane, advanced observation haki. In my opinion, it is just a flash of powerful desire or will. Will which is related to haki. So the eyes only really matter when you can control them. And I know some people are going to bring up that Zoro already has future sight haki because we had his fight versus Mr. One back in Alabasta. He could hear the breath of all things. And I just disagree. If Zoro possessed future sight haki or anything like that, we would absolutely know. So in my opinion, a growth in observation is necessary. It just depends on how Oda wants to do it. But at the very least, and as always, you guys already know, the goal is just to make you think. So I hope we were able to do that. So go ahead and leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Remember to check out my book, The Booms, links in the description. If you guys happen to read it, please leave a review. Let other people know what you thought about it. Just spread that message. Like, subscribe, click that bell to be notified. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.